Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. What is life but a striving after the wind and the vexation of the spirit? So saith the preacher in Ecclesiastes. Only 6.5 pages, I regard as last will and testament of King Solomon. If in this life, and I believe it is, that money drives the train, tell me what train it doesn't drive. It's vanity that stokes the boiler every time. It's 3000 BC. It's late at night. An Egyptian craftsman, way past middle age, creeps out of his crowded, stifling mud house. Wants to breathe a little fresh air. Maybe his wife's snoring. Wants to spend a few minutes alone in the fresh air, and in the light of a sinking moon, they're silhouetted a half pyramid. He looks up at the immense dust storm of clouds, stars, and he looks up and pays homage to Orion, the mighty hunter. Then he asks himself, as he's done so many nights in those later years, the haunting 7-word question that's been asked for millennia before him, still being asked today. Did my being here make a difference? Men and women, as their shadow grows long, will always ask that question. Years from now, you obituary writers will look back and see clearly that you have. Let me take some questions. It's been a real pleasure to be in your company today. I'll be sending you all an email, sort of a established comms with you. And I want you to know I'm at your service on behalf of my kingdom. And you're doing the Lord's work out there. And God bless you and have a safe trip home. Thank you.
We do have questions. We have questions.
Questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
How does this work? It's mechanic.
Well, it's on. And the battery will die after.
You did one right now?
No, I think so. Can you hear me? No.
You can't hear?
I can hear. Here's a question, and you know, your Christianity and your faith is really clear, but I'd like to hear from you how, in the process of the interviewing, you feel like you're healing, because at the end you do offer to people some solace, so I'm kind of curious how that comes through.
The way I got the feedback on is he asked how I knew that I was part of the healing process. I would get handwritten letters. I have hundreds and hundreds of those at home I've saved. I gave a lot to Marilyn Johnson when she did her book. And I'm still saving them for my kids to read someday, which they will not. Forget all that. I'm under the illusion that they'll give a rat's ass about what I did for them. But in the letters, they would spell out. It wasn't until I talked to you that I remembered how kind Tom was, and so forth and so on, or what he meant to other people. And they actually spell it out, and you can clearly see this is a result of your phone call.
So the types of questions you were eliciting from them, the sides of that person, you were kind of bringing that out?
Yeah, I would interview about 1 hour on the phone, maybe a little less. If the interviewee was a dud, sometimes Aunt Lucy is the big bull of the party, and he grabs the phone and runs over. Oh, Aunt Lucy doesn't know jack. So I would take a little interview, thank you, is anyone else there? And then I would get the real interview. Generally, the interview would stop short of an hour if it clicked in my head that I had it. And after you do this a number of years, I did 19 years, wrote 4,000 or 5,000 features, maybe 12,000, 14,000 shorts. It just clicks right away. It just jumps out. Yeah, I got it. Okay. Question?
Jim, did you have, toward the end of your, they wanted to get on the speakerphone with 4 relatives.
Yeah, I tell them, I simply tell them we can't do this. I have to attribute, and I absolutely cannot identify who's talking. One person, okay?
Yeah. Most speakers are former.
One other thing that's happened to you, I just want to tell you how I handle it or didn't handle it. Sometimes after an obit, you may get a phone call that says, the guy you just wrote about is a no-good SOB. I just want you to know that. It happened to me. I wrote about a cop named Jim O'Neill, detective. Great story. Just had a compassion that from time to time he put somebody in jail and he would take groceries once a week for the family while the guy's in jail. So I get a call. He wouldn't give me his name, of course. He was obviously a cop. That was an SOB. I saw him pull a baby out of a woman's arms and put cuffs on her once. I'll bet there won't be 6 people at that funeral. I said, well, I went with what I knew. And who are you? Oh, that doesn't matter. I said, okay. Let it go. I don't get an argument with anybody. And I got thinking about it, and 2 days later I called John Floor up at Floor Funeral Home. He handled all the cops up in Northeast. I said, John, check your book. Tell me how many people came out to the viewing. He comes back and he says, Jim, looks like there might have been 600, 700. Thanks, John. Okay.
Do you have, did somebody else have your hand? Go ahead.
Well, I was struck by when you talked about our obits are the final earthly judgment in writing. And one thing I deal with is the portion of a person's life. So you spend too much on sports. What about the kids? And so often, though, it seems so trite to say he loved his children and doted on his grandchildren. How did you deal with keeping things in proportion and making sure that, as best you could, it reflected what the person was?
Well, what I would do, and the question is, how do I give good proportion to it a little bit? I would generally go with the instincts of the wife or the husband. If they spent a lot of time on his fly fishing and how he loved the kids, I would spend time. I tried to, rather than say he's a good father, just give a short anecdote about being a good father. I also found it very helpful to talk to one of my features were one-person interviews, if they really knew it. But I found it almost imperative to talk to somebody he or she worked with. The wife or husband or kids will never know that other side. It could be tough, it's shrewd, this or that. There's no way they can know that other side. And you need it. Otherwise, you're not going to see the pulleys and ropes behind the cutout. And so I tried to get at least one person from the professional side, which would be very revealing to the survivors of the family to see what kind of guy he was at work. Sometimes it was much, much better. Sometimes not.
Yeah.